That was fascinating. And I'm going to quickly pivot to the election. Because
you don't want to go back to the sex
Yeah, no, I was
categories?
thinking, how am I going to pivot from there? So I was like, I'm not even going to try. I want to talk, especially we're from the United States. We've just had this huge historical election.
So I've heard.
So unless you've been living under a rock of sorts. You spoke a little bit about this, but what made Donald Trump such an effective communicator? What was it about him compared to Hillary?
Well, you know, it's amazing. I was actually working for a presidential candidate who was the Hillary Clinton of the Philippines, who was a former cabinet secretary, a former senator, an incredibly educated guy. And he was running against a guy, you may have heard of him, named Rodrigo Duterte, who is currently the president of the Philippines, who literally had said that he was upset that he was not invited to a gang rape and murder of a woman, Australian visitor, in his hometown. And so no one, when we were in debate prep in the beginning of the campaign, no one took this guy seriously. He was this populist. He spoke in very simple ways, but he said such crazy things. It's like, let's not even pay attention to him. Let's focus on the other candidates. And sure enough, his poll numbers never dropped. They kept staying strong and even increased. It's like, what's going on? So this sense of populism is real. This sense of income inequality, like the last speaker was talking about, is real. But none of that can happen unless the communication is really powerful. So let's look at what Donald Trump does, right? Remember, he would get out there and he would talk without notes, without teleprompter. He would just have a what? Remember my definition of great public speaking? It's not having a performance, it's not giving a speech, not making a presentation, it's having a what? It's a conversation from the heart, which is what on the other side of the aisle Bernie Sanders did, right? That sense of authenticity. Now, it could be crazy shit, but it's authentic, right? So he had a conversation with people. He spoke in very simple, clear terms. You knew exactly what you were getting. We're going to get a wall. We're going to keep Muslims out. We're going to change the trade law. And we're going to, what? Make America great again. What did you get with Hillary? See, there's a huge problem when you complicate your message. We're going to be going more into this in the workshop at 2 o'clock.
I think the idea of authenticity is really interesting because that's becoming a buzzword in the tech world, because I think there's so much information out there with social media that people just latch on to something that feels authentic. But even though some of what he was tweeting oftentimes is journalists, we spend a lot of time trying to discredit, well, you know, this actually isn't true, or this is incorrect, he said this, so look here, we'll retweet something that he put, that he's actually lying. That didn't seem to matter, even though it seemed authentic. So at what point did the truth seem to get lost in there?
Well, we're in a post-truth world, and in large part, you know, social media is being blamed for reinforcing these falsities, and at some point you don't know what's true or not. And I blame not just CNN, but I blame the media because they were just obsessed with the clickbait of this election, with the sensationalism. And the truth is, Donald Trump cannot build a wall. He cannot unilaterally change immigration laws. He cannot unilaterally make America great again. It takes Congress and the President of the United States. It takes 279 people. And the fact that journalism, you know, at the highest level, never explained that. We just got caught up in the NASCAR experience of this election. It's like, can't wait to turn on the TV to see what ridiculous, crazy thing Donald Trump is going to say today. And it's the lowest common denominator. I know you're sensitive about this.
I'm not so sensitive. Everyone's doing some self-reflection, but I will push back on, you know, we at CNN eventually started literally, if he was saying something incorrect, putting up banners. That's what you see at the bottom of the screen to say this is incorrect and fact checking. So I do think, you know, I don't think it's any. I think you have to look at all different sides. One side that I'm interested in specifically is social media, because I think a lot of folks did some soul searching of everyone was shocked because of the outcome, and a lot of folks said, well, that's maybe because we were living in a more insular social media bubble. You know, the promise of Facebook is that it's going to give us different viewpoints, and all of a sudden, there's been some soul searching of people saying, maybe actually we were only seeing our own viewpoints. So what role do you think Facebook and Twitter had in putting in this election?
Well, it's not just that. I think it's people get to choose their own radio station, their own television station, their own social media, and their own friends who are going to curate other articles that are going to reinforce their point of view, as opposed to when I was a kid, when you had 3 television stations and we all gathered together, myself, my brothers, my parents, my grandparents, and we watched the news together. And I think that's devastating to a society, because social media was supposed to bring everybody together, right? But in effect, it's created silos that are micro-targeted silos, which makes communication almost impossible. But I have to go back to what you said. It's not okay to say, oh, he's a rapist, he's a murderer, he's whatever. Oh, it's not exactly true, right? I mean, the damage was done when the media allowed Donald Trump to have months and months and months and months of free, unquestioned exposure, for him to work his demagoguery on America and the world, and then at the end to have a few little notes saying, well, this is not exactly true. I look forward to a time when the media goes, Mr. Trump, let's have a serious conversation. You say you're going to build a wall. How are you going to build it? And he would say, it's going to be a great wall. It's going to be the most beautiful wall you ever see. No, how are you going to get that through Congress? Well, I'm going to convince him. No, specifically, tell me the strategy. Tell me the people that you're working with. Do you even know how many people it takes in the United States Congress to authorize the building of a wall? Call his bluff. He's a con man. How did you let him get away with that?
Did you guys watch...
I think they're on my side.
Look, I'm not arguing media or not media. Look, I know many journalists, myself included, who have asked some very difficult questions this election. Many journalists who have been targeted. I
think you're great.
No,
I already said so a few minutes ago.
But I do think it's worth this larger conversation. And trying to understand how we move forward in this new era. So
we seek the truth and we tell the truth. It's really simple.
Let me ask you this, because we're focusing a bit on technology. What role can technology play now in promoting democracy? I mean, we're pushing some questions on Facebook with fake news and this ability for these ideas to go viral that could be looked at as propaganda. You have governments trying to put Twitter bots, foreign governments trying to put political rhetoric out there on Twitter. So it's a very complicated landscape right now. So what do you think we can do to move forward as it pertains to technology?
You know, I honestly think that the cat is out of the bag, the toothpaste is out of the tube. I don't think you're going to be able to rein in this incredibly seductive process of people scanning and searching for confirmations of their own opinions, for curating friends and news sources that agree with them. The only solution is a Bernie Sanders. The only solution is a John F. Kennedy. The only solution are leaders who can raise the bar high enough and tell the truth at a high enough level that people will then gravitate towards them, and we can all start to get our news from one source rather than 1,000 discredited sources that may be seductive to us in the moment.
What advice, since you work with a lot of different candidates, I mean, what advice are you going to give to them in the future as it pertains to also, weirdly, now that it really means a lot, their social media brand and their rhetoric online? What advice will you give to those folks?
I only have one bit of advice that I give to my clients around the world that is really important, and that is to be authentic. And that's to tell the truth. If you screwed up, if you used an email server you shouldn't have used, just say, you know what, I fucked up. I used it. I'll tell you why. It's because I've been harassed for 30 years. People have been after me for 30 years, and I honestly didn't want people looking in my emails. And you know what, maybe I made a mistake. I'm sorry, but I did it because I'm sick and tired of people badgering me, and I made a mistake. Boom, done. Right? And that's why we loved Bernie. That's why we loved John F. Kennedy. That's why we love the great leaders that are so rare. The people who don't pay attention to the polls, who just say, this is who I am and this is what the truth is. And I think that's our only salvation, is to curate not just news sources, but leaders, both in media, for example, reporters and whatever, Richard Engel, for example, phenomenal. Phenomenal. I mean, I just listen to every word he says because my sense is his integrity and his authenticity is 100%. And that's, I think, what we crave. And the reason we crave that is biological. If someone is not authentic, there is a primal biological fear that they're going to hurt us, right? And that's why we stay away, and that's why we hate politicians, and we hate people, whether they're businesses or companies or business leaders who are poll-driven, right? And say, no, who are you? Right? Who are you? Who is the authentic you? That's the solution for the media and politics.
Last question before the robot. Oh, yeah, he's going to yell at me. Last question.
Hey, robot, you owe me a couple seconds.
Can you coach charisma, that thing that people just are drawn to?
100%. You know why? Because it's inherently who you are. When I coach people, I rip away all of the other bullshit that gets in the way. Who you are authentically is inherently charismatic. It may not be charismatic like Martin Luther King, but it's your own unique charisma because you are a once-in-a-universe experience, as I said. And I get the message.
Great. Yeah, no, I know. It's like it's supposed to be is it supposed to be a Donald Trump looking like it's just going to haunt me at all times? Great. Thank you so much.
Anyway,
I
thanks,
really
Laurie.
appreciate it.